Fortunately for us, we social distance every week
It's true.
because we're in virtual studios. Welcome to the Enough Already podcast. I'm Fingers Malloy, along with Tracy L. Connors. I took my glasses off to make a point. If you're watching on the YouTube or the BitChute, and it's not an important point, I just felt like taking my glasses off. So here's the situation. If you get on Drudge Report, we joked about this a couple of years ago, Tracy, where the lead every day on Drudge Report should be, ah!
Hmm.
Have you been on Drudge today?
I haven't been on Drudge in weeks.
Is it because that the lead every day should be, ah?
Pretty much. I just don't find it useful anymore.
That's understandable. But you look at what's going on over at Drudge right now, and, all the headlines are, we're looking at a bullet train coming across the country. Fear and foreboding in New York. San Francisco surge. Louisiana has fastest growing cases in world. I mean, not that there's a lot to be cheery about, but holy crap. You get on Drudge sometimes, now, and you think to yourself, I just want the sweet angel of death to come down and kiss me on the forehead and let's just end the whole thing. Kenny Rogers is a lucky guy. That's what you think when you get on Drudge Report.
Just don't go there. I don't know why. I spent the weekend reading everything I could get my hands on this thing. And guess what? The media hasn't read the stuff that I've read, or if they have, they're not sharing that information with anybody. Because this is a hurricane and what do we call? Oh, polar vortex and an earthquake and a fire all rolled into one for them. They can't get enough of it. Every single one of them, the backdrop is that the map with the giant red circles that just keep growing and growing and growing. But there's no context in any of that. All they report is this is how many people now have tested positive for it. But nowhere in there is the most important figure, which is how many of them are gravely ill.
Right.
So we're up at like 50,000 or whatever it is today in the United States. Okay, well, how many of them are sick? Right now, I'm looking at the number in the USA. We're recording this on a Tuesday. What is it? March the 24th. 45,291 cases in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, here we go. This actually has it. Coronatracker.com. Guess how many of those are critical in the ICU? Based on what you've seen on TV and the freaking out and the we're running out of everything.
If I were going to base it on what I'm seeing on TV, 35,000 are critical. If you're sitting back and analyzing what's really going on, is it less than 1,000?
It's right over 1,000.
Okay.
It's 1,040.
I mean, that's newsworthy.
Is it?
But not we all gonna die 24/7 doomsday coverage newsworthy.
Right.
It's amazing what we are doing to our own economy. Listen, we need to be smart. There needs to be social distancing, but we don't need commerce distancing. And that's what's going on right now. We're just volunteering to shut down our entire economy and not coming out with some sort of return to work date for everyone. And I understand that's hard to do. You can't predict these things, but to shut down the entire economy, you think that our best and brightest in Washington could figure out a way to come up with a plan that allows our economy to continue to function and yet still do its best to protect those who are most vulnerable. Tracy, I've got a friend, I'm not going to mention her name, really good friend of mine. She works at a hospital. She's had 2 coworkers infected with the virus. One of her coworkers' mother died from the virus this week.
Wow.
So I don't want to be lumped in with some on the right who have said, "Oh, this is a hoax. This is overblown.
Wait,
The
whoa,
threat's
whoa,
not
whoa.
real."
Time out. Did anybody say it's a hoax? Can we not perpetuate that nonsense?
I have seen people say it's a hoax. But the President Trump did not call it a hoax.
Okay. I
Uh,
think the context that I've seen that in is that people are saying it's a hoax, how serious this is. If we hadn't watched this slow motion train move from China across the world here and it didn't have a name and a reputation, we would just think this is a really bad flu season. God, this flu is really awful this year. That's it. Everybody would be going about their normal business.
right.
So that's to me when people are talking about it's a hoax. That's what I think they mean. That's what I mean when but I don't, whatever. Anyway, so back to your story about your friend. Sorry.
Well, no, but the point is that you need to take this seriously. I think everybody should agree that we need to take it seriously, but to just voluntarily shut down the economy. And the other thing that really bothers me about this whole thing is there are a bunch of people uh, who are on social media getting on the soapbox, being very preachy, saying, "Don't leave the house. Oh, why can't you get it through your thick skull that you should just be sitting on your couch eating potato chips and watching Netflix?" Well, that's really fantastic if you have a situation where you can work from home and you can do that, or you had the ability to save up for how this isn't a rainy day. This is a government-induced storm that has approached us. If you have the financial ability to be able to sit on your couch for a month and get fat and watch Netflix and eat potato chips, that's great. But don't criticize a bunch of people that are doing what they can to keep a roof over their families' heads and feed their kids. It's not that easy for a lot of people, and there's a lot of callousness right now from a lot of people just acting like, well, geez, can't everybody just sit on their couch and completely shut down for a month and just watch Netflix? Well, no, they actually can't.
Well, and if you want everything that you need to be comfortable in your own home watching Netflix, you probably want certain people to get back to work.
Right.
Right. And I don't know what chaos has been caused in Indiana by your governor or what state of lockdown you're in, if you want to talk about that.
Well, we just got what is it? Sit and spin. What is it?
Shelter in
The
place.
shelter in place. Whatever you want to call it. That's where we're at today. But it's largely symbolic at this point. I mean, the police aren't going to pull you over asking for your papers yet in Indiana. But look, I had to go out today. I did have to get some things. So uh, I was at Aldi, and we're recording this on Tuesday, March 24th. And I was there mid-afternoon, got in, got out as quickly as I could, was pleasantly surprised about the amount of stuff that was still on the shelves. There was bread, there was milk. Uh, I've got plenty of toilet paper, so I wasn't worried about that. But I was pleasantly surprised for where we are now and the governor's announcement that we were going to, shut things down except for all the essentials. You could still go out and get groceries. Uh, but what's amazing is I don't know if it's like this in Pennsylvania, Tracy, but the amount of businesses that are now considered essential according to the government is kind of funny. I saw a friend of mine on Facebook. She works for Lowe's in the garden section. I don't know. She may be a manager of the garden section at Lowe's. She said she posted on Facebook today, "I don't mean to brag, but the government classifies me as essential."
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah. So, uh, look, there are certain aspects of the economy. There's certain sectors that are taking a huge hit, and people are wondering if how they're going to pay rent next month. I've got a friend that works at a hotel. They're talking about shutting her hotel down. And then you've got other people who are in retail where holy crap, they should be getting paid hazard pay. And in some cases, it looks like they are going to be paid hazard pay. Uh, retail sales are pretty good for a lot of people in at least grocery stores, the box retailers, and even home improvement. So I think you're seeing a lot of people running out as quickly as they could if they have a little extra cash, and saying to themselves, well, geez, if I'm going to be locked up around the house for a couple of weeks, I can get some home improvement projects done. So uh, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this all unfolds and when there will be I shouldn't say a return to normalcy because that's going to be a while, but at least a return to work for a lot of people.
Well, I think Trump put a time limit on it today. He wants stuff opened back up by Easter.
That's pretty ambitious.
I don't disagree with him, though. I mean, if we get real about this and understand that they're doing testing on that hydrochloroquine, which we are not advising anybody to take, if you are so stupid as to take what was supposed to be used to clean up some infection in your koi fish and think that it would work on humans, when I'm guessing that there's some kind of warning labels and it's not even the proper drug, then I can't help you. But otherwise, they're showing real promise with that stuff. I know certain people are trying to downplay that. And oh my God, it's not permitted by the FDA. They haven't approved it yet for this. God forbid we knock down some of these barriers that are keeping us from getting everybody back to work. And then I've been watching, Cuomo's been doing press conferences every day, or updates. I don't know what you want to call them, but he's on television every day for about an hour explaining what's going on in New York. And while he's screaming that they need more ventilators, which they have the opportunity to buy because they have in their state, their emergency plan called for having, I think it was 18,000 respirators on hand in the state. Yeah, they have 2 because they decided not to spend the $500,000 they would need to buy the respirators. And apparently, I guess I missed Trump's conference today, but he mentioned that in passing, like, oh, yep, they had the opportunity to do this, so they didn't take advantage of it, and now they're screwed, and they're whining for the federal government to come and save them, which is ridiculous. But I see that, and there's some other things he keeps talking about. They're working rapidly to develop a test that can tell you if you've had it already, and that you have the antibodies in your system, and if say you're cleared, you could go back to work, and we can also use your plasma to extract the antibodies and give them to the people that are now suffering from the illness. So I think that's going to move fast. I've seen it said, and I think it might have been either Scott Adams or Naval Ravikant that said this is the first time in the history of mankind that everybody's focused on the same problem. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be some innovative solutions and things happening a lot faster, I think. And I also don't think the American public will put up with being told to sit at home for all that long.
No,
because it's really ridiculous. And I don't know how far your governor went with the shutdown order, but ours went really hard. It came out last Thursday afternoon, I think after normal business hours. So all the business owners I know that I talk to on a regular basis said, my phone started blowing up as soon as this thing came out. Because it was like, are we allowed to come to work tomorrow? What's going on? Tell me what's happening, kind of thing. And they had put out a list of life essential and non-life essential businesses, I believe is how it was couched. Mm-hmm. So it was just this spreadsheet with these, wide ranging kind of things. Do you want to know what they shut down initially? That just made me laugh. And I was like, this guy is such a lefty bastard asshole. He's trying to cram through some stupid agenda garbage. Take a guess.
Well, I would think you have
Remember
a lot of
where I
fracking
live.
going on in Pennsylvania, don't you? Is it fracking? No more fracking?
Coal mining.
That's close.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, hey, dummy, do you want everybody to be stuck at home with no electricity? Do you know how fast they're going to come for your head? And I mean, he's supposed to be a business guy. And there's no thought put into how many of these non-life essential businesses are actually part of the supply chain for the life essential businesses. Mm-hmm. None. So now people are frantically trying to get waivers. And the other thing they shut down, which I thought was incredibly stupid, was all construction, road work. When are you going to have less traffic on the roads than right now? And have you ever seen road workers standing incredibly close to each other? I mean, come on.
Only when they're bumming cigarettes off each other.
Right. No, it's usually them sitting there texting or something like that. They seem pretty isolated. So that was just incredibly, incredibly dumb. But most of the people that I know were spared from on that list. They're essential. So now the biggest problem is keeping employees feeling safe and secure because they're hearing crazy stuff. They're worried to tear, should I come to work? Am I going to get sick at work? Do I need papers like you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
That was a question that was raised by some of the people that I work with. Do I need something to show? Am I going to get pulled over if I'm out moving around? I mean, they've just created this chaos, absolute chaos. And it's like say 50% of us are going to get this at some point or another. Let's just stay calm. Realize that 80% of the people that get it have no to mild symptoms.
Right.
We should be protecting those that are the most vulnerable. Let the older people shop early in the morning. They're awake then anyway. Let them go about their business. Don't go visit them.
How are your parents handling this?
My dad's been out fishing the last couple days. And he flew back and forth to the West Coast last week.
I love my dad. He's 81 years old. I'm doing everything I can to talk him out of leaving, but every day he leaves the house for something that he doesn't need to leave the house for. Today, he accidentally called me at 8:45 in the morning. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button." He said, "I'm sitting outside the Dollar General. It opens at 9 a.m. and they've got toilet paper, I was told this morning at 9. I said, "Okay, Dad. Well, how many rolls do you have right now?" He lives by himself. I've got 15 rolls. like, Dad, why are you going to get toilet paper if you have 15 rolls? Well, my buddy needs some toilet paper. Well, let your buddy go get toilet paper. So he went to the Dollar General, and then he went to Kroger, and which is a grocery store in Michigan. I don't know how many people are familiar. I don't know if you have Kroger in Pennsylvania.
It's a pretty big chain, yeah.
Yeah, so he went to Kroger and to get bottled water.
Because the water's going to get shut off? That's what I don't understand when I see people with all this bottled water.
Well,
like, buy a Brita.
The thing is, too, I mean, Michigan, especially in his neck of the woods, he lives north of Flint, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's some of the best tasting tap water you'll ever have, and you don't need people where I grew up. Very few people had water softeners. I moved to Indiana, and everyone has a water softener down here. You don't need it up there. The tap water is excellent. But, part of it, too, is he just needs to get out of the house. He's by himself, But it's like, is it worth catching this crap? Because, again, you need to take it seriously. I just said somebody's mom, a friend of mine, coworker's mom died catching this. So it's hard, though, to try to tell someone who's your parent, he's 81. I'm going to tell him what to do.
Right.
So hopefully anyone out there over the age of 60 who's listening to this, just take it easy. You don't have to go out every day. And if you want to go out, just get in your car, drive around. You don't have to get out of your car.
Well, go for a walk. It's awesome now. I've noticed. So I've been on walks almost every day when it's nice out. And it's the first time that I've been able to walk around and not have to worry about people that aren't paying attention walking into me. Everybody seems to be aware of their personal space now, which is such a huge improvement because I would get so annoyed. Yeah. I'm like, really? You don't see that there are other people around you? But I did almost lose my shit last week. I went to the grocery store, and I won't drop the name of the chain because I don't want to get them in trouble. But this was before they instituted only senior citizens in before 7. I got there right at 7 anyway. So I walk in the front door, which is you get dumped right into the produce section. There's 3 teenage staffers standing right next to each other, leaning on the display of fruit. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. So I went, got what I needed. And this is when the lady in front of me had nothing but toilet paper. And I took a picture, which I haven't shared on social media yet, but it did make me think, a lot of people yell about, oh, we have this social contract that we've all signed. Well, that lady clearly didn't sign it. But she turned to me and she's like, this isn't all for me. And I said, I don't really care.
Right.
What am I gonna? I'm not the toilet paper police. I don't
Yet.
care. I get it. Yeah, no, I stocked up a month ago knowing this was coming. So I'm not worried. I got my TP. You do you. So then I pay, I get out of there. As I'm heading out the front door, there's now a staff meeting going on at the front door. There's a semicircle of staffers, all shoulder to shoulder, blocking the entrance and exit, and the manager standing right at the door talking to all of them. And I wanted to say, hey, you are right now supposed to have everybody in here 6 feet apart from each other. And you've got them clumped up right in front of the entrance to a grocery store. I want to see the people that work at my grocery store taking this seriously and following the protocol that we're all supposed to be following. This should be a safe space. Everybody should feel comfortable that there's no infection running rampant, that you guys are being smart and keeping away from each other. But here you are. They bottleneck the door. So there's a lady that's stuck trying to get in, me stuck trying to get out. But I just deep breath, walk out, wave with my gloved hand, and go to the car. I'm just like, okay, we're never going to do it. This is all futile. What a complete joke.
Yeah, but kudos to you for not making a big stink about it to where you're going to mention the name of the chain here on the show. I got to share with you a story from WXYZ.com in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Police, this is the headline, police, don't call 911 if you think someone isn't following stay-at-home order.
Mm-hmm.
Police throughout the state are urging people not to call 911 if you see someone not following the stay-at-home order issued Monday in Michigan. Shelby Township Police, Shelby Township is outside of Detroit. It's in southeast Michigan. Posted on Tuesday morning telling people that while it may be an emergency order, it isn't a 911 emergency. People are calling, hey, I think my neighbor's leaving. Call 911.
Yeah, I have yet to engage on that neighbor next door app, but I'm on it, so I see all the threads, and it's so much snitching. I want to be like, guys, calm down. Just please relax. Like, this should be used right now to facilitate getting groceries for people that are old.
Right.
And necessary items for them. That's what you should be doing on this app, not being like, oh my God, there was a lady last week, like, how do we report businesses that are defying the orders of the governor? And I was like, oh. And I just want to jump in there and be like, stop. Like, come on, do you know what you're asking these businesses to do? And they have no choice in the matter.
Right.
You know, initially when our Governor Wolf put out his mandates, he had threatened imprisonment as one of the punishments. Like, they've since walked that back a little bit, but it's like, that's some serious stuff. And now you got people, I've got customers scrambling to get exemptions because they do things that definitely qualify as essential. Uh-huh. But now they got to go through, and you go on the state site and it's like, here's how you fill this thing out. And what's the waiting period? Indeterminate, because we've got a lot of waiver requests. It's like, well, how many people right now are laid off that you guys could be employing to just rubber stamp shit?
Mm-hmm.
If you make it's better to just let as many people that are willing to open and operate their businesses open and operate their damn businesses.
Well, I mean, I don't understand why some businesses it's okay to stay open, but say let's use, for example, a diner. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've got a friend in Virginia. Before I'm sure they're on lockdown at this point, but I was really surprised over the weekend. She told me that her family, they went out for breakfast at a diner. And I said, well, how's that possible? From wherever I've seen, for the most part, states have imposed restrictions where they've closed restaurants except for takeout. And she said, well, they're doing social distancing. You can have no more than 10 people at the diner at a time.
Yeah.
Why can't let me get this straight. It's okay for me to keep my grocery store open or my home improvement store open if we, just tell everybody to keep your distance. But here's a restaurant or a bar saying, okay, we have to close everything up. You have no ability to run your business at all because it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we're doing something. I mean, that's what it is. A lot of this feels like it's the TSA. It's all for show. Hey, look at everybody. We're doing something.
Yeah, it's
That's what it
theater.
feels like.
It's theater. So right now I pulled up the list that came out this morning on Newsweek of all the following states that have implemented some form of shelter in place or stay at home. And sometimes this is just in counties. Like in Pennsylvania, there's only certain counties that are actually like stay at home. So you got California, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Ohio, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Texas, West Virginia, and Wisconsin.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they want it feels like the sense of panic that, and I hate to use the word panic because that's another word that has been watered down in 2020 along with words like courage. Because listen, while it looks like panic when you see a half a mile line to get into a Costco. To me, panic is rioting and looting in the streets. And we haven't seen that yet. Let's just call this a major overreaction to what's happening here. Going back to what you said earlier about how you think that Americans will not put up with this for a long period of time, and you think that maybe they will say, okay, Easter, we're going to say Easter is when we're going to cut a lot of this off. You may be right, but I just look at what's going on right now and the messaging from the media and the sense of again, I don't want to use panic, the overreaction to where you're actually having people saying, I'm going to call 911 because my neighbor is going out in public. I don't know how you can just flip a switch and be like, hey, it's fine, everybody can go back out again, when you've got people hunkered down in their homes and they fought off 400 people at a Costco to make sure that they have 20 rolls of toilet paper in the house. All of a sudden now saying, oh, okay, it's all good now. There could be if that really happens and there isn't this huge spike in infections, and this doesn't end up being anything better than or anything worse than a bad flu season, man, there are going to be a lot of angry people in this country.
Yeah. And the question becomes, who are they going to blame? And it looks like mostly governors, because they're the ones that have the authority in this whole thing. So I get sick of this. Oh, Trump didn't do enough. Trump's not doing enough. It's like his hands are tied. Do you not understand how federalism works? Do you really want the orange man bad dictator dude that you've been warning us about to have more power? And it seems to be what they want.
Yes.
It's terrifying, and it just shows you there's certain people that are just like, just please tell me what to do. All we don't want is to be told what to do. So I do think that if all of a sudden they said, hey, everybody can go back to work, there would be a fair amount of people that are like, okay. They said it's okay. Well, I don't know.
You had a little bit of an Obama thing going on there.
I said it's okay. You can go back to work. Well, that reminds me, the other day, one of the press conferences that the task force, coronavirus task force, was somebody asked Trump, have you reached out to former presidents to see if they can offer any kind of help? And he's like, yeah, no, I don't really think they could offer anything of worthwhile to me. Oh, and I just loved it. Because they're just, oh, Obama would be so much different now. It's like, give me a break. But one of the things that I found over my weekend's worth of reading, which has resulted in a PDF file that's 180 pages long, was this infuriating story from the Dispatch, which I didn't know anything about, but I'm told that it's run by Never Trumpers, so people wouldn't read it when they tweeted it out. And I'm like, I don't care if it's run by Never Trumpers. It's a factual timeline of how the hell we ended up where we are as far as testing goes. because that seemed to have been what made the difference in places like South Korea was able to do rapid testing. Like they had that all set up, ready to go. They knew it was coming. Singapore did the same thing. Guess what? They didn't shut down like we did. So if we had testing available, say 2-3 weeks ago, we wouldn't be where we are now. So my question is, how do we end up with no tests? Well, this article at the Dispatch, which I will post in the show notes on our brand new website, we've now got a new URL. We're enoughalready.media now.
Nice.
From the Dispatch, written by a gentleman named Alex Stapp. The timeline, the regulations and regulators that delayed the coronavirus testing. So, long story short, what happens is we had the first case of coronavirus in the United States was detected on January the 21st, fingers. Did you know that?
Oh,
That's 2 months ago.
right.
Okay. So we knew about it back then. So then, here's what happens. They decide to use, okay, here's the timeline. That's what I'm looking for. So January 21st, CDC confirmed the first case of coronavirus in the United States and announced that it had finalized its coronavirus testing protocol. So then 2 days later, German researchers published the first paper describing a testing protocol for the virus. The World Health Organization would later use this protocol as the basis for millions of tests it produced for less developed countries. On the 30th of January, the World Health Organization declared a health emergency. January 31st. So now we're 10 days after we've confirmed our first case and knowing what's already going on in China at this time. That's when HHS Secretary Alex Azar declares a public health emergency, which initiated a new requirement. Labs that wanted to conduct their own coronavirus tests must first obtain an emergency use authorization from the FDA. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not surprising.
No, it gets worse. So we'll jump ahead a little bit. So apparently these emergency use authorizations were intended to speed up the normal authorization process. But in this case, labs that were already conducting their own coronavirus tests needed to cease operations until they were granted an EUA. By declaring a health emergency and not waiving the EUA requirements, the FDA was actually slowing all of this down. So, this is my favorite. Obtaining one of these is no quick task. The FDA requires new protocols to be validated by testing at least 5 known positive samples from a patient or a copy of the genome. Most hospital labs have not even seen coronavirus cases yet. And then they wouldn't release them from these labs. So this is what you have to do. There was a doctor named Alex Greninger. He's assistant director of clinical virology laboratories at University of Washington Medical Center. He was forced to navigate this regulatory morass. So here's what he told. I think this is from a Reuters story that is excerpted. After emailing his application to the FDA, Greninger discovered that it was incomplete, fingers. Because it turned out that in addition to electronically filing it, he also had to print it out and mail a physical copy of it, along with a copy either burned onto a CD. I don't even... Sorry, I should have seen that you were going for a drink. Or saved onto a thumb drive. Then that all had to be packaged and shipped to FDA headquarters in Maryland. There's nobody. This is the stuff that drives me insane with bureaucrats. It's just like, nope, that's the process.
Right.
Sorry. And you would think in a situation like this, when it seems to be like everybody could drop dead if they get this thing, that there'd be some clear-headed person there that says, hey guys, maybe we should just let these people make their tests. Like, what's it gonna hurt?
Right.
But knowing the power and of fear that the federal government can put into labs and all these things, like, you don't want to violate whatever they have in place. They could shut you down forever if you do that.
Well, and we've seen this too when it comes to the war on terror, where you have different agencies being territorial. You know, the FBI, CIA. Here you have the CDC and the FDA trying to work seamlessly, and there's nothing that work seamlessly in the federal government. Mike, a CD, it goes back to the stories of what our nuclear codes were on freaking floppy disks from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, but you had, how do you pronounce this doctor's name? Is it Dr. Fauci or Fauci?
Fauci.
Fauci. You know, we didn't talk about this last time. And well, this may have happened after the last time we recorded, but Fauci came out and said, listen, the lack of testing, there's no bad guy here. It was nobody's fault. Everyone wants to blame Trump. Everybody wants to blame the CDC, but the process broke down, and this would have happened to any president. Now, up until that point, I saw a lot of the blue check mark smart set on the left talking about how Fauci was, oh my gosh, he's the best. He's a badass. As soon as he said, listen, the testing thing, it's not Trump's fault, then all of a sudden, look, he's a Trump puppet now, which, means that he's a Putin puppet too while you're at it. I mean, if we just want to make that leap. But
of course,
they weren't prepared for this. But a lot of it has to do with the fact it's a new virus. I mean, people just expect things to be able to, drop out of the sky in 2020, and they can't fathom that it takes time to get what we need. It's not just you just don't go to the warehouse and say, get me 3 of those. Like the government can go to Costco, say, oh, you know what, we need some coronavirus tests. Can you send us some? There's a process.
No, absolutely. But they slowed down the whole process.
Yeah.
And for no good reason, from what I can tell. So hang on a second here. I'm having a little bit of camera trouble. So I've got you on there on solo screen fingers.
As I drink my refreshing beverage, we're seeing what's going on in Italy. And I think that's part of the problem too, is Italy is the media is making this leap that we're going to be just like Italy, even though we're nothing like Italy. There was a story on MSN.com that Italy may set heavier fines for the coronavirus lockdown violations. Are you ready for this, Tracy? Italy's government may impose fines of up to 3,000 euros for violations of a nationwide lockdown. Now,
wow.
if you do the exchange between the exchange rate for euros to dollars, that's around $3,300. You get fined for violating the lockdown in Italy.
Well, and they've just gone into heavier lockdown. So I got a note today from my vendor over there. They had been still working. They had instituted these insane protocols. Like only one person allowed in the bathroom at a time. You weren't allowed to eat in the cafeteria. You had to eat at your workstation. Like everything's sanitized constantly. I mean, I get it, right? They've had serious problems over there, but now they're forced to shut down their production line, and they're part of supply chains for a bunch of other industries. So it's like, I don't think people understand the ramifications of shutting down things. But I do want to finish off this timeline because burning the CD-ROMs is not even. I mean, honestly, it's so pathetic. And this is just the mentality that you get in these institutions. So the lessons that I'm learning are lessons that I already knew, which is the federal government is a behemoth filled with people that are just rule followers.
Yeah.
That cannot think like, maybe we should waive this thing for these labs to get this stuff done. So here we are. Now what's going on is the CDC has decided they're going to create a test. So that's the only test that we really have at this point. And on February 24th, an association of more than, so remember, January 21st is the first case. Now we're at February 24th. An association of more than 100 state and local health laboratories sent a letter to the FDA commissioner asking for enforcement discretion to use their own lab-developed tests. The chief executive of the association that sent the letter, and I hope he sent a CD copy of it too, called it a Hail Mary pass and an act of desperation. So can you, like, I can't imagine that all this is going on. You've got doctors and labs all over the country screaming to make their own tests, and the government just keeps saying no. And it reminds me, I don't know if did you ever watch the show Little Britain?
No.
Oh, it's great. Go look for clips of it on YouTube. It was two different guys. It's a British show, and they actually did an American version that was on HBO, and they just play a bunch of different characters. But there was one reoccurring character that was just like the traffic cop kind of person that you run into at the front desk somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always showing, like, sometimes, and they were constantly playing women characters. So it's one of the guys dressed up as a woman that's just very nitpicky, and you would come in and say, "Hey, I'm Fingers and I need XYZ," and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm not finding your name in the system." And then you would tell me again, and then it's like, "Can I do this?" And she would be like, "Nah, computer says no." There's nothing I can do about it. The computer is saying no. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. So what the labs did when they sent this, the FDA told these labs, go submit the paperwork that we asked you to submit. I'm not kidding. So they're not rolling out the testing. And so they're facing a backlash, and they decide at this point on February 29th that to reverse their position and remove the requirement that advanced laboratories obtain prior emergency use authorization before using their own tests. But at the same time, this exemption only applied to, quote, laboratories that are certified to perform high complexity testing consistent with the requirements under the Clinical Laboratory Improvement Amendments. So one researcher estimated that 5,000 virology labs in the country met that standard. And just for context, the U.S. testing capacity includes approximately 260,000 laboratory entities.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, during all of this, the CDC had put their test out for some testing.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
Go
it
on.
didn't work. Yeah, it would test people. It would show up positive testing for coronavirus, but would also show what they called false positives for a bunch of other stuff. So it was completely worthless. And the way that he puts it in this article is like they put all their eggs in one basket and then dropped the basket. So this is why we are where we are. Because you had private industry saying, we want to help, we want to do this, we want to do this. And you had compute that says no. No. So, yeah.
Well, that's one of the main problems, one of many problems with relying on government. There's no sense of urgency and there's no common sense. I have not checked in the last hour or two to see if there has been some sort of agreement on a stimulus package coming out of Congress. There was this big battle in the Senate where they thought that they had an agreement, and then Nancy Pelosi swooped in from vacation along with Chucky Schumer, and they had all these demands because, never let a good crisis go to waste. So here you have a bunch of millionaires in Washington, D.C. arguing how they're going to help the peasants out there in the country. And meanwhile, none of them are going to, many of them don't even need a paycheck, let alone miss one. I think that that should have been brought up immediately. Somebody should have stood up and said, okay, we need to pass a bill quickly stating that if nobody gets paid until a stimulus package gets passed.
Right. Well, how about just nobody gets paid?
Well, there's that too.
Honestly, they've forced all these people, and it's not at the federal level, so it's really hard to say. At the state level, I think, no, you guys aren't getting paid until business is back up and running. And you can pay contractors to go through and rubber stamp approved all the people that are asking for waivers to get back to work because you just arbitrarily, willy-nilly shut stuff down. But to your point, I think I saw somewhere that the bill that Pelosi dropped today, I believe it was 1,400 pages. And I'm like, this could be a two paragraphs.
Right.
Here's what we're doing for individuals. Here's what we're doing for businesses. And the one thing I haven't heard discussed, talking to other business owners around here, it's really hard to keep your staff coming to work.
Yeah.
And some of these guys are in really vital things. Like we have big customers that I'm not going to name drop for you, but I'm going to let you know that their names have been mentioned on the news. These are pharmaceutical companies.
Mhm.
They can't afford to have us close down because we've got sick people or people calling out because they're scared that they're going to get sick at work. So how do you incentivize those people to come to work and stay at work? And then what's my liability if I do that?
Yeah.
And then they get sick, and can you go through the whole, do I want to prove that they didn't get sick here kind of thing? Like, you don't want to be that asshole. But I just keep thinking, if they would just suspend the payroll tax for any business that's still open, both sides of it, because the employees pay 6.25 and employers pay 6.25. Let the employers keep that 6.25 to build up a fund in case they need to shut down, and then they can still continue to pay people off of that, and then give everybody else gets a 6.25% raise. Done. That's a sentence in there. Everybody else gets checks. And I mean, everybody gets checks, and I don't even think they need to be checks. They have our friggin' social security numbers. Direct deposit.
That's what it looks like it's going to happen from what I've seen. At least that's what the original bill coming out of the Senate, it looked like they were just going to give, what was it, $1,200 per person in a household. So if you're a married couple, it'll be $2,400 for a couple that is making $150,000 or less. If you're an individual, $1,200 if it's $75,000 or less. And then
I don't like this means testing stuff. It's just gross.
Well, that's the thing. You know, if you are one of the people that is fortunate that can work from home and you're still making the same amount of money, and by the way, you're saving money on whatever you would spend during the week on gas and going out to lunch 4 days a week and all that stuff, you shouldn't be getting that money.
But why not? I think you just give it to everybody, and then you can claw it back later through taxes if you want to. But just get it out. Like, why fight about this? And I know people look, how many people are sales that work on commission? And they're basing it off your 2018 return. So say you did a really bang up job in 2018 and made all kinds of money. And now you're a salesperson and you're not allowed to go do any in-person meetings right now. So you're sitting there making nothing. And you've probably got overheads that we can't even imagine. Well, so I mean, listen, it's like, why nitpick this stuff and hate the rich?
Well, no, I don't disagree with you that everyone should get the checks, but I don't like it.
I don't like that any of this is going on, but they forced this on us.
Right. I just like, I'm not a bailout guy.
Right. I'm not a bailout girl either. I hate it. But this is a different situation.
Yeah. This is the government telling people to shut down. And unfortunately, not enough people in this country have any idea what it's like to run a business. And they think to themselves, well, geez, why can't an airline just go into their rainy day fund? And if they have to shut down for 6 months, then they just shut down for 6 months. And it's like, that's not how the things work.
Well, there is an argument that a lot of those big corporations spend a ton of their cash on stock buybacks.
Yeah.
So that they would have controlling interest or could sell that later if they needed to, and didn't squirrel it away in a rainy day fund. So shame on them for doing that. But the government's shutting them down. Like, I have a really hard time coming to a decision on what I feel like should happen with all of this stuff. And maybe they just keep fighting until everybody can go back to work, and then we never even have to have this discussion. But I think that if you say you give everybody, including the rich, their money, then can you start a social media campaign like donate your checks to here?
Right.
And actually, these celebrities are going insane. If you haven't noticed, they can't stand not getting attention because everybody's locked at home. So they keep outdoing each other with ridiculous videos they're posting on social media. It's just pathetic.
I've seen people post the picture of Madonna apparently in a bathtub full of milk or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was all about. You would think at this point, how old is Madonna now?
She's 60, I think.
Do you still need to be an attention whore at 60?
Yes. That's what's going on. So once the first one of them says, I'm donating my $1,000 to XYZ or whatever we get, then don't you think that's just going to take off so they can virtue signal and get attention at the same time? It's like,
but we need an awareness ribbon for that.
I know. Somebody was asking me at my work about that. Like, are we going to get ribbons? Like, what do you think the ribbon should be? And I said it should be you know, corona comes from, it's a Spanish word that means crown. And it's called the coronavirus because if you probably, everybody's now seen the little image of what the little viral, looks like. And it's got little crown shaped things coming off of it. So I said, no, forget this ribbon shit. Everybody gets a crown. Why are we doing this ribbon garbage?
The only coronavirus ribbon I've seen in meme form is the toilet paper.
That's awesome. But do you really want to show off that you have toilet paper at this point?
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's an open invite to get jumped.
I'm still amazed that we're dealing with this now. Look, I am in the same boat that you were in. I mean, as soon as this stuff started happening in China and it looked like it was starting to spread, it was like, okay, time to load up. If you don't have anything, get it now, because it's going to come to the United States. And when it does, people are going to overreact. And I mean, everyone who has been on social media in the last month, they've seen the videos. There was one out of California at a Costco there. It was just unreal. It looked like a half-mile long line. It was wrapped all the way around the building, all the way through the parking lot, all the way down one street, and then take a right halfway down the other street. And there were shopping carts there waiting for people to get in line to fight over Kirkland toilet paper.
Single ply. It's awful. I'm like, I got the good stuff. I got quilted northern, like 4-ply, extra cushy.
You.
Yeah. But,
PP 1%er is what you are.
I am. But there was some other stuff that I dug into that I wanted to share with everybody, because this is also scandalous that the media is not reporting this as far as I'm concerned. So I read the report that was put out by the World Health Organization that was called the WHO-China Joint Mission on Coronavirus Diseases. And so this doc's not very long. It's like 15, 20 pages, but it's got some interesting information in it about human-to-human transmission, like this contact transfer that we've been hearing about. So they said most clusters, I'll start at the beginning here, household transmission. In China, human-to-human transmission of the COVID-19 virus is largely occurring in families. Oh, wait. What? I thought we were told to shelter in place with our families. So they say in Guangdong province and Sichuan province, most clusters, 78 to 85%, have occurred in families. Household transmission studies are currently underway, but preliminary studies ongoing in Guangdong estimate that the secondary attack rate in a household ranges from 3 to 10%. So this one I thought was really interesting. They did contact tracking, they call it, and they also did this in South Korea and in Singapore, because I also read the studies that came out of there. So I just got to reframe this a little bit so everybody that's watching can read along at home. So anyway, this is what happened. So they said China has a policy of meticulous case and contact identification for the COVID-19 virus. For example, in Wuhan, more than 1,800 teams of epidemiologists with a minimum of 5 people per team are tracing tens of thousands of contacts a day. And we all know that they have that crazy surveillance state over there. So this is entirely possible, right? Everybody's got their social credit scores. They're tracked way more than we are, blah, blah, blah. So contact following up is painstaking and with a high percentage of identified close contact completing medical observations. So between 1% and 5% of contacts were subsequently laboratory confirmed cases. Did you hear that? 1 to 5%. 5%,
yeah.
Depending on the location. So in Shenzhen City, among the 2,842 identified contacts, all of them were found. So they found 2,842 people. Of that, 2,240 of them, 72%, have completed a medical observation. Among the close contacts, only 88, or 2.8%, were found to be infected with the virus. So then we go to Sichuan province. So among their 25,493 people that they identified, which is 99% of them, they've been able to test 91% of that 99%. Only 0.9% were found to be infected.
Wow.
So, and then they say in Guangdong province, 9,900 people were identified. 100% of them were traced. And then they've completed testing on 78% of those people, and the infection rate was 4.8%. So take that last one. It seems a little bit higher, but they also don't have the full scope with that because they've only tested 78% of the traced people. So this is sounding a little bit different than what you've heard on the news, right?
Yeah.
And they all have access to this. It's public domain. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one of the leads on Drudge, which again, it's designed to terrify you, and I'm not saying it's not true, but virus lingers on surface for 17 days.
It can, but it has a half-life. Like, these are things that need to be discussed here. It can, but what the okay, let's just think about this reasonably here. It's going to get on a surface how? Either a droplet of spit or somebody coughs or it's one of these things or somebody touches it.
Right.
So it's not like the entire surface is then covered, right? In the virus, it's wherever that little droplet or handprint or whatever touched it. And just knowing what we've implemented at work, what people are doing at home, is there any surface that's going to sit for 9 days and not be disinfected? Honestly.
Maybe a dorm room.
Right. But they've shut down all the dorms.
Yeah.
So, and this was the one that I thought was one of the more interesting pieces that I pulled out of there. So the way that the commentary I had on this was, we've heard a lot about the Chinese healthcare workers becoming infected. We all assume they became infected at work. Wrong. So here's what they say. Investigations among healthcare workers suggest that many may have been infected within the household rather than in a healthcare setting.
Yeah.
It's just like, you gotta be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. And I get it. I saw some woman, and I don't know what her name is and what her alleged expertise is, on CNN yesterday as part of the, and I don't, maybe we should call it the panic. It's the drama queens on this.
Uh-huh.
Talking about all, the healthcare workers, which that's fair. Like, let's be concerned about keeping them healthy. And,
right.
She's like, they're terrified that they're getting infected at work and then they're going to take it home to their families. Okay, here's a thought. Then she's specifically talking about New York City. Fingers, do you suppose that there's a vacant hotel within a block or two of every major hospital in the New York metropolitan area?
I would think.
Do you think those healthcare workers might be able to shack up there until this passes? And maybe the city can foot the bill. I don't know. But let's keep them away. And Chicago apparently had that idea. So they've opened up I think they said that the city of Chicago is renting at least 1,000 hotel rooms across the city for people to quarantine in.
Well, New York is thinking about it, but they have to come up with a plan and then put it on a CD-ROM and send it. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you were drinking. And then send it to the CDC for approval.
Then they have to transmit it via Morse code. Over ham radio.
Yeah. And then the town crier will make an announcement whether it was passed or not.
Oh, man.
So are we forever changed? People always like to live in the moment and say things will never be the same again. Eventually, this is all going to pass. Eventually. And how will the country be different, say, 3-4 years from now? Do you think that people are going to be able to make a good case to wherever they're working now to say, look, I made it for a whole month working at home. We need to start transitioning some of my work to where at least 2-3 days a week I can stay home instead of coming to the office. Will the cruise ship industry ever come back? Will people at some point say, okay, YOLO, it's okay now. Everything's passed. I'm fine with going on a cruise ship again. Look, you know me, I for years have been.
I know. You should have been shorting the cruise industry this whole time, Fingers.
I've been anti-cruise the whole time. How does this change things, say 2-3 years down the road?
The only things I keep thinking about are I believe that Americans will be more likely to save money.
Mhm.
You know, we've constantly heard that people don't even have $500 in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
So does this turn us into a more of a saving culture, which I think would be a good thing? And then we can actually have interest rates that make sense instead of the Fed. Maybe the Fed goes away. I mean, they've blown so much money into this economy now, and it just proves how worthless it all is. And I don't know how you call that back. It's just like we'll drop $1 trillion and $1 trillion and $1 trillion, and you might as well get Krugman's coin made up at this point. That's how
It's
absurd the whole thing is.
it's like the Fed is being run by Oprah.
Right. So everybody's seeing that the Fed is ridiculous and worthless. People are seeing that politicians are absolutely worthless too, and that they're willing to squabble about petty nonsense while all this is going on. You're understanding that power rests in the states and not in the federal government. So I'm wondering if we're gonna see like a Brexit movement internally where states secede so they don't end up with this. You know, how many state labs were there that were trying to get approval from the FDA or the CDC? How furious would you, if I was a governor and that was going on in my state, I would have said, don't listen to them. Just keep working and I'll go to court. Like, I don't care if we take this to the Supreme Court. Keep working on your tests. Keep working on whatever you've got going to stop this thing, because otherwise the chaos is coming. And then the thing that I can't stop laughing about, just because it amuses me, because I had the bad habit of it as a kid into my teenage years of biting my nails. And I wonder how many people are going to kick that habit during all this. But I do think we'll also be a much more hygienic culture. I think people are going to be washing their hands from now on and maybe showering a little bit more frequently. And maybe they'll clean up the equipment at the gym when they reopen it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh,
No,
it would be.
that's funny. The last time I recorded Eat, Drink, Smoke, I'm part of that podcast with Tony Katz, and we go to a bar in Indianapolis. It's called Blend Bar Cigar. And I was in the restroom, and I'm there washing my hands, and another guy finishes up, and he's over there washing his hands, and he made the comment to me. He said, I've never seen so many men washing their hands after using the bathroom at a bar now that I'm seeing. It just shows how gross people are, that they are washing their hands. But no, I think you're right. I think there is going to be a lot of that. I hope so anyway. You shouldn't have to. I've just seen too many people at work walk out of a stall and just walk out the door and not wash their hands. It's so disgusting. But if you do get that stimulus check, I know in my situation, I'm going to pay down debt.
Yeah.
Probably with. I don't know. I know I should. I would love to go out and spend $1,500 on a new grill right now. I don't think that's a smart move, but I probably should. The other thing too is, what are you going to do with that money? If say, like, I would love to. I've got bathroom floors I'd love to redo. Am I going to hire somebody? Is someone going to want to come into my house and put down a floor?
Right.
Am I going to want a crew to come in?
You're not allowed to do that. Yeah. But right now you can't.
No. So these are going to be very interesting times. Speaking of time, we're an hour and 4 minutes in, Tracy. You got anything else?
I mean, I could go on this virus stuff for hours, but I'll spare everybody and just keep up to date. And maybe we'll get a couple more of these out, since we're now both working from home, or one of us is working from home. The other ones just can't do their job from home. So we'll be working on their yard.
I've got a lot of tasks around the house to do that I've been blowing off that apparently I've got plenty of time to do now. So between that and we can do some more podcasting here. But anyway, this has been the Enough Already podcast. You tell your friends where they can find it over at Apple Podcasts and TuneIn and Google Play, all the places where you can find podcasts. That's where we are. And you can watch the Enough Already podcast in video form over at YouTube and BitChute. Final thoughts, Tracy?
Yeah, go check out the new site. Let me know what you think of it. It's a work in progress, and I don't really know what I'm doing on WordPress, so it's kind of a fun thing. But once I get that settled, I'm going to start posting all the stuff that I'm reading about the virus to try to keep everybody up to date with actual things that are helpful to know instead of like, oh my God, fingers, the Olympics are going to be postponed for a year. That took up an hour on CNN today. I'm like, really? I think the standard right now for news reporting should be, is this going to save a life?
Yeah.
Are we relaying information that's going to affect people's day to day? And they're like, oh my God, what are they going to refund people their tickets? Like, people plan for this. What about the athlete? Just shut up. Just shut up. Tell me what's really going on in these hospitals. Like, I want to see what it looks like inside a New York hospital. Is it out of control? Is it crazy town? I can't tell. I mean, they're presenting it as such.
They are. It's like Little Italy. That's what they're making it sound like.
Right.
And to be fair, Governor Cuomo, I've heard, has been for the most part pretty solid when it comes to his press briefings.
I would agree.
You mentioned a couple of times where he's blasted the federal government, and that's fine. The federal government deserves to be blasted for a lot of things, but for the most part, I've heard he's been pretty fair.
I think he's been fair, and I think he's been really good at communicating useful information. I really do. I mean, 2024, look out. Here comes Cuomo for sure. And he's got that New York attitude, much like Trump, except it's a different variation on it. It's more Fredo-y, if we're allowed to throw out that that slur. But I mean, he's like, this is about our mothers. Like, that's why I named the law, like, to facilitate all this. I named it Matilda's Law because that's my mother's name. And I'm like, oh God, spare me. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. The press is, we got to shut down Trump's press conferences.
Yeah.
We got to stop that. And I keep, there's several reasons I think that they want that to go on. And it's because he's been really effective in those recent, in the past week or two, he's really stepped up the game. He shares the spotlight. He makes sure that, this is the right expert to answer this question and that question. He's got a nice little rainbow coalition up there of women and minorities. And he's also able to then go over their heads and be empathetic, which we were told so many times during this primary that he doesn't have any empathy.
Right.
So that's kind of bad. And meanwhile, we've got the Democrat primary still going on and nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Well, but I would like for someone to ask Nancy Pelosi, how will canceling $10,000 worth of student loan debt help Matilda? If someone could do that, I'd appreciate that. Look, the fact that that's an 1,100-page bill is just absolutely obscene.
I think it's 14.
How many pages?
I think it's 1,400.
Listen, Republicans should
burn it.
If Republicans are doing this, I would blast them. If the Republicans said, okay, in the coronavirus stimulus package, we're going to eliminate the Department of Education. As much as I would love for the Department of Education to be eliminated, this is not the time for that crap.
No.
And for Democrats to be able to load this bill up with pork for money to go to the Kennedy Center and talking about election security and the canceling of $10,000 of student loan debt for every American that has it. It makes me sick to my stomach that they're allowed to do this and hold up aid for hardworking Americans who have been put out of work because of this virus and the reaction by the government. The fact that Democrats can get away with it and the mainstream media will just clap like seals, it is once again another example of why Andrew Breitbart was right when he railed about how the mainstream media in its current form needs to be destroyed.
Yep, 100%. And I got to dig in. I thought this was a thread that had all of the information about what they crammed into it, but it looks old. So it's not the latest version of it, but it's full of garbage. And they should have broken this up 2 bills. One bill that's what's going on with getting people money. And like I said, it's a paragraph or 2. And then another bill for dealing with all the industries that are being destroyed and how you're going to approach that.
Yep.
So we'll see. If they keep behaving like children, it's just going to drive more and more people to dislike and distrust them.
There's nothing that's come out of in the last 6 weeks that's made me say to myself, man, they should be in charge of our healthcare.
Right, right. Well, and the other thing, we might get through this and find out that we've got an even stronger case against socialized medicine. Because that's what I keep, oh, Bernie Sanders, this never would have been a problem if we had socialized medicine. Okay. Well, Italy has that. I think Spain has it. Great Britain has it. Canada has it. Let's see how they all do.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't magically make a bunch of ventilators appear. It's like this is the same kind of bureaucracy that would exist as far as the emergency preparedness side goes.
Right. I mean, and look, it's hard to feel like you're getting accurate information anywhere, but I believe we were the most prepared for this than any country, and especially when it comes to ICU beds. We're supposed to have much more, many more ICU beds compared to any other country on the planet. So, I mean, we can sit here and have this discussion all day long, and all you have to do is point to the data. It just makes people, again, like you said earlier in the show, people want to be told what to do. Yeah. And they want to think that, oh, well, you know what? At least the government's in charge of my health care. Yeah, they do a really shitty job of it.
Yeah, this shows you how little they care about us and how little they care about themselves. That's what I can't get. You would think that the fear of death, impending doom and death for even you, if you're working at the CDC or the FDA, would cause one person there to be like, hey, time out, time out. We want them to print out this thing they filled out online and then burn it onto a CD-ROM and send it to us to get approved to make this. Why are we telling them to stop work? No. Yeah, I'm done.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Look, I'm not a government agency, but other than ordering on Amazon, I don't even know where I could get a CD-ROM right.
Right. Well, do you even have a CD burner in your laptop? No. I haven't had a CD burner, I think, in a decade.
Amazing. Okay. Well, follow Tracy on Twitter at Tracy L. Connors. Follow me on Twitter at Fingers Malloy. Check out our page over on Facebook, facebook.com/Enough Already Podcast. Check out my other shows. I'm on Sunday mornings on Wham Talk 1600 AM in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and my other podcasts, the Snark Factor, and I also do a show with Tony Katz called Eat, Drink, Smoke. And I mentioned that earlier. All that is found on, where all good podcasts are sold. So that's it for us this week. She's Tracy. I'm Fingers. We'll be back soon with an all new Enough Already.